Hi everyone, and welcome to my pattern fill tutorial for Cricut Design Space. As well as going over how to add a pattern, I'm also going to show how you can enhance your design further by making use of the offset feature to add an outline. You are limited to the size you can print your image when using Design Space, but I will also show how you can add some extra space between your main image and the Cricut sensor marks, which is especially useful if you need to design and print some graphics, don't necessarily need to use your Cricut to cut it out, but it's the app you feel most comfortable using. The files used in today's video are available to download for free, and the links are in the description below. So let's get started. I've already got Cricut Design Space open, and I'll go to Upload, where I've already uploaded the SVG file that we will be using today. Once it's loaded, I can resize it purely so it's clearer to see. I'll be setting the actual size later on in the video. If I go to the materials colour, you'll see that to start with we don't have the option to select pattern to fill our image, and this is because it's set to basic cut. So the first thing we need to do is change it to print then cut, and then when we click on the material colour button again, you can see that we now have a drop down list where we can select the pattern option. The patterns shown here will be ones that you've added yourself, along with others included with Design Space. I've already added one that I will be using today, but let's go and add another. To do that, you follow the same path as if you are uploading any other file, but you select pattern on the upload screen instead of image. And as usual, you can then either navigate to where the files are saved, or you can drag and drop from the folder in your Explorer window, which is what I'm going to do today. You then get the option where you can rename it, but I don't think you actually see the name anywhere in Design Space, so don't worry if you don't. It can sometimes take a little while to load, depending on the size of the file and how zippy Design Space is feeling at the time. But once loaded, you'll be taken back to the upload page in case you want to add any more files at the same time. But I'm just going to return back to the main canvas. Now when I go back in to select a pattern, you'll see that it's been added into the selection available. And if you've not used the pattern fill option for a while, you see that Cricut did finally add a way to remove the patterns, which I think happened last year. So yay! Then all we have to do is click on the pattern we want to use, and it will fill our selected shape. I could edit the position and the scale straight away, but I'll click off so you can see how it's initially filled the image. With it selected, I can then go back into the pattern and edit it. I personally do find this window a little annoying, especially as you can often see the actual image updates quicker than the preview. We can adjust the scale and have a slide bar to do this, but the other options are unfortunately up and down arrows, or you can enter a value. I think slide bars here would be so much easier, but we will work with what we have. And then once you are happy, you can exit from the window, but you always have the option of going back into it if you want to make any further adjustments. I'll go to Make to show the preview of how it fits within the print then cut limitations at its current size. Back on the main canvas, if I do resize it and make it larger, you are given a warning and the maximum size info. Being in the UK, I'm using A4, but I'll switch it to letter and you will see that the max size changes to fit letter measurements. So my project for this image is I want to print it out and put it into a frame as 6 by 6 inches. And obviously at the moment it's too large to do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is resize it so that it's 5.5 by 5.5. And I want my characters to look a bit more defined. But in Design Space, we don't have the option to add a separate outline to our images as we do in other software. So instead, I'm going to make use of the offset feature. But what I'm going to do first of all is make a copy, and to do that, I'm simply going to hold down the Alt button and drag one off. And this is so I can show you how different it looks with the offset added. So I'll just hide it for a moment. So I'm going to go to Effects and Offset. And this is a kind of a Goldilocks moment. I don't want it to be too thin, but I don't want it to be too thick either. So I'm going to go for 0.03 inches. So it just is slightly larger, but not too much. And then to make it a bit more defined, I'll make it black. If I just move it away for a second, you'll see that this is a solid black image, and we don't want it to be a solid black image. So we need to make it a part of this image. Before I do that, I just want to show you another little trick that you can do. Is if I just move it off slightly, it gives you almost a shadow effect on your image. So that's another look that you can go for. I'm going to make a copy of the offset. We can do that in the layers panel. So we do copy and then paste. I'm going to pop it under the second image that's hidden and hide that as well, just so I can add it to the other one and I don't have to redo the offset. Then I'm going to select those two and click flatten. And now they're a single image. And because we've added that slight offset to it, it's made it a little bit bigger. So we can just put it back down to 5.5. And now when I bring back the other one and we place them side by side, I'll just move it a bit closer, you can see how much more defined the image looks just by doing that. And what I'll do is I'll take the offset and bring it over here and then align them together. Now another thing that can make your image look very different is the actual image that you filled it with. So if I go back into the pattern window and select the other one that I uploaded, and then I'll select them both and flatten those. And again, you can see same design, but different pattern fill gives it a very different look. And if I wanted to, I could have also made adjustments to the placement, but I don't feel there's any need to go through that again. So this is currently 5 by 5 inches, and if I go to make, and obviously because of the size of it, it fits nicely within our box. And if I go to continue and then just hover over it here, you can see how it's going to print. And the sensor marks are actually quite close to our image, even though there's quite a lot of room, extra room around it. The sensor marks don't automatically get printed in the four corners of the paper. They get printed around your image, which for something like this, because it's just I want to have it as a square. If we're all, very, very honest with ourselves, that's the sort of thing that you could cut out by hand. So it'd be useful if we had a guide to do that. And we can't guarantee that cutting off those sensor marks would leave us with what I want is a 6-inch square with my 5 by 5 image in the centre. So we need to expand that area. And to do that, we're going to make use of the shapes. So I'll grab a square. I'm going to resize that to 6 inches. And I'm going to change the fill colour to white. So I'm going to take the square and I'll move it underneath. And again, I'm going to make use of the offset. Again, it doesn't have to be very thick. Now the offset is obviously a little bit bigger, but that's fine because it gives you a cutting guide. So you could cut within those lines. And then if I select all three, align and center, and then I can flatten them. So this is now one single image. And if I go back to make, you can see we've got plenty of room in our guide box. And then I'm going to go to continue again and hover over it. So you can see that those sensor marks are now further away from our image. So the square has done two things. One, it's given us a guide to allow us to cut it out by hand. And two, it's pushed those sensor marks out further away from the edges of it, unlike before. So that's just another little trick that you can do if you want a bit more room around it, whether you're doing this purely as a print file or if you are using it to print and then cut. If you are going to use your Cricut to cut it out, then you would forego adding the offset and you would attach it instead of flatten it to the main image. I hope this video has helped you get more out of pattern fills in Cricut Design Space and given you some ideas for creating your own printable designs. If you'd like to take things a step further, I have some more videos coming soon covering ways to get even more from Print Then Cut in Design Space, including paper sizes, printable areas, and some other useful tricks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.